with Jim White, son of the most famous vet in the world, James Herriot, or really Alf Wight, OBE, his real name. Jim, thanks for coming again. Pleasure to see you again. We've learned a lot about your father in our first session, and just picking up from there again, what was it like watching him write?
I was astonished that he could write these books in front of the television. Some people think this is made up. It isn't. Because I was working in the practice back in 1967 to 68. He was there. I watched him sitting in front of the television. If the football came on, he'd stop, watch it. Something else bored him, he'd start off again. Absolutely incredible. You must remember, though, that he started writing a book back in the 50s. He started writing, messing about, stories, these sort of things.
Putting it in
So he'd had years and years of practice. And also that first little book, If Only They Could Talk, that was eventually published in 1970, that book, he'd been practicing on that book for years. So he was almost into overdrive.
Right.
When he got writing in front of the telly. And that's the thing I do remember very vividly about him. That he's, and as I've said before, the dedication and determination of the man was, I thought, he was always a man who had lots of crazes. You know, when he was younger, all sorts of crazes, playing the violin, learning Russian, all this other stuff. He had lots of crazes. Yeah. And I thought this writing thing was another craze, but it wasn't.
It was a real thing.
Oh no, this is the real thing.
Yeah. Fascinating, yeah. What about the books and TV series? They've brought millions of people to Yorkshire. How important do you think Yorkshire's character is to the stories?
Well, being a Yorkshireman myself, I mean, I think it is very, very important. We can't dream of this being set anywhere but Yorkshire. Mm-hmm. I mean, we regard Yorkshire as God's own county.
Yeah.
And I know that my dad, when he first came to Yorkshire, was astonished. Having sent up to the day from a city boy in Glasgow who thought Yorkshire was a mass of factory chimneys. That's what he thought Yorkshire was.
That was the impression.
Yeah, that's the impression he had. Mm. And to go and see Swaledale up there and Wensleydale, I mean, that was it. He just fell in love with Yorkshire. Mm-hmm. It would have, well, I don't know what he would have thought it was set anywhere else. There was nowhere else for this man to be.
Well, he's certainly done a lot for Yorkshire, hasn't he, in terms of his...
He's brought in so many tourists. And, you know, it was interesting, you know, before the world of James Herriot was thought of, when back in the 70s, we have tourists coming in, mm-hmm. and they were just a nuisance to us lads working in the practice. You know, it's all right on a table, you know, castrating a tomcat with about 10 Americans around your table. It was no good at all.
Certainly an image of that in my head.
That happened very, very insincerely. You know, and that big American that came in. You know, so most of the American people, however, were very understanding, and they used to stay over the other side of the road and just take pictures. But as that big guy came in, the big fat guy, about 6'8",
yes,
came in with his camera balanced on his stomach. And he found out who I was, and he says, "Where's your dad, boy? Where's your dad? I've come from California to see your dad." And I said, "It's his day off today." "What? I've come thousands of miles, it's his day off." I said, "He can come tomorrow." He says, "Tomorrow's no good. We're doing Scotland tomorrow and Wales on Sunday." So, and then I remember another time I was there was an American pumping his hand. He said to my dad had this glassy, faraway expression on his face. He said, "Meeting you is one of the two most exciting things that's happened to me in my entire life." There was a pause, and my dad said, "What was the other?" He said, "Flying along in a single-engine plane along the floor of the Grand Canyon."
Oh, wow.
I remember saying to my dad at the time, "You've definitely arrived now, Dad."
Yes.
Definitely.
Oh, gosh.
God. Yes. But Yorkshire, it can only be in Yorkshire. And as Robert Hardy said, they were going to film the first original series way back in the
BBC series.
BBC were going to film it in Derbyshire. But Robert Hardy said, "Yorkshire or I'm not taking part."
Well, that was a very great endorsement.
Oh, a great endorsement.
Yeah. Well, in fact, the stories were based on Thirsk, and that became Derby, and so it was Yorkshire stories, weren't they? Really? Yeah.
Of course, you must remember my dad had rich pickings. Farms in those days are full of men.
Yeah.
Now they're full of machines. But every farm, biggish farm, had 5 or 6 men working on them.
Right.
And these were characters as well.
Yeah. Not just
My
the.
dad was a great observer. He could see, he could assimilate all the wonderful characters into his writing.
It's amazing how much detail he puts into the stories.
Oh, yes.
Did he have an excellent memory? Did he keep notes?
Well, people thought he kept a diary, which he didn't.
No.
He kept a little notebook. He scribbled things down.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah.
He didn't keep a diary. He did when he was a boy in Glasgow. He kept a diary, which is quite interesting to read. But yeah, he just had a little notebook and he scribbled things in his notebook. And anything that happened to another colleague, me, for instance, or Donald, or other vets that he knew and were friendly with, if they gave him something that was interesting, he'd put down his little diary in a little notebook.
Right. And that gave him his source for
But it'd give him a source for a story.
stories. Yeah. Yeah.
But all based on fact. The most damaging thing I think they ever said about James Herriot was he's a writer of fiction. Wrong. He's not a writer of fiction. These stories might not have happened exactly in the way that he wrote them, but they're all based on fact.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Except one thing. There's only one thing that's fiction. My mother was not a farmer's daughter. She worked in Rymer's mill as a secretary. But that's all. It's the only fiction, real fiction.
Rymer's Mill in Thirsk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sadly gone now, but
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Night by the river. Is there a story or detail about Alf that you wish more people knew?
I don't think so. I've tried to put across what people should know about him in the book that I wrote about him. About this extremely modest and unassuming man who remained bemused by success till the end of his days. I think this is very important. And to think that he was the only best-selling author that stayed in the country.
Yes.
And wouldn't go abroad. You know, in desperation, they said, ring Jack Higgins, because he was a man who wrote The Eagle Has Landed, which is a tremendous success, this book. Now, he stayed in the country. How does he get around this tax business? So my dad rang Jack Higgins, got his number.
Yes.
And there was an answer phone. Mr. Higgins is now resident in Jersey. Really? Or it might have been Guernsey. So that was the end of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, that's the main important thing about him. A totally and utterly non-greedy man.
What do you think you'd make of the new All Creatures Great and Small series?
That's a very good question, John. I think he would have enjoyed it. It's difficult to say because I think he would have said, I want this in and I want that out and that sort of thing. In fact, they're very good with us, with my sister and I. They always send us the scripts.
That's good.
So we can read the scripts. And if there's anything that, we realise that it's not everything that James Herriot wrote, but if there's anything that's not appropriate, we can say so.
That's good.
And some of the things do come across that we say, we don't want this in. That's wrong, or this sort of. And they do respect us for that, and that's important.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but what he would have said, he might have had a little bit more say. I want you to put this in, or knock that bit out, or whatever. But we do. Rosie and I sometimes think, I wish there was a little bit more of my dad's stuff that could be put in. It could be repeated almost, you know.
Well, they've recently announced 2 more seasons.
2 more seasons.
7 and 8.
It's incredible.
We've had 6 already.
They'll make a damn good job of it, don't worry.
Yeah.
They'll make a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're pleased about that?
Yes.
Good. Yeah.
Keeps the tourists coming into Thirsk, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Why do you think the stories remain so timeless and universal?
I keep saying that James Herriot's books are timeless. They're describing a way of life for the vet, the countryman, the farmer, that has totally changed now. The history. James Herriot's books are history, and they will be timeless. That's why I think they'll continue selling. It's incredible to think they were brought out in 1970, and he's still in print. 45 years later? 55. 55 years later? Still in print, still selling well.
Still selling, yeah.
Yeah. Still places like, for instance, my sister and I had to verify a contract from our agents for not a big sale, this at all, but it's to the Czech Republic. This was just only last month.
Right.
That's just incredible. Herriot is still going well.
Yeah.
And in China, it's going in China.
Yeah, there's a fan club in Moscow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing how much the world is, well, the world's famous vet, as we know.
Could they introduce President Putin to the James Herriot books? I mean, that might soften his attitude to Ukraine. Would it?
Now, there's a thought, Jim. Shall we make the call?
Shall we fly with you?
Yeah. But, I mean, has this renewed interest with the new TV series given you any surprises? Is it you and the family? No.
We thought it would be a success.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. As I said before, it's nostalgic. And also,
Yes.
there's a lot of stuff on the television now that is very violent. It's the dark side of human nature, a lot of it that we see.
Yeah.
Here we've got the opposite. You know?
Yeah.
I remember years and years ago when my dad's book first came, the first film it was with Simon Ward came out. Jaws came out about the same time.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And one review said, isn't it nice to have a film here with All Creatures Great and Small, a film without any sex and violence and drugs.
Yeah.
I remember my father saying, I hope they don't make me out to be some sort of Sir Francis of Assisi character. He said, I like films with sex and violence. You know? He didn't want to be remembered as that, certainly.
Didn't want to be a saint, no. Tell me a bit about the period after your father passed away, sadly. The veterinary surgery was still operating at 23 Kirkgate.
Yes, it was.
And you were part of that. And it was sometime not long after your father's passing that it was decided to move from there. What was behind that thinking at the time?
Well, there was, to start with, that old place, we were getting more and more of the small animal side. We were doing operations. We needed
on site.
we needed we needed a waiting room. We needed an operating theatre. We had them, but they were sort of, I don't know, makeshift in a way. Kennels, yes, we looked after animals very well, but we realised when the small animal work became more and more intense that this old building, delightful old building, was not made for modern veterinary practice.
Yeah.
Two other factors. One, parking. Couldn't park. There was no parking places. We became experts, at getting a car in with reversing back in, getting about 1 inch between the car and front and back.
Along Kirkgate.
And then what really did it for me was I saw a woman carrying the dog had been run over, and she was running to us from way down the far end of the street, carrying a bleeding dog.
Oh, right.
I said, this is no good. We can't go on like this. And so we decided we got going straight away.
Yeah.
And we had to borrow money, and my mother lent us some money at a very, very low interest rate.
Right.
But it might have been nil, I think.
But that helps you to move to a
Helped us to move and get a new place built on the modern outskirts of Thirsk.
Yeah.
Better parking, better facilities and everything. But the funny thing, when we first moved out there, a lot of the customers said, we don't like it here as much as the old place.
Yeah.
There's nostalgic memories of the old place, but the new place is far, far better. The old place, with a waiting room, just everybody looking at each other in a square, with a Rottweiler sitting next to a rabbit, it's no good. It's just no good at all. So, anyway.
And what was your thinking at the time then about the idea that sprang from that to then turn it into the world of James Herriot?
Well, we wondered what was going to happen to the place because it belonged to Donald Siegfried's offspring.
Yeah.
And I give Hambledon District Council, I give them their due. They saw, especially through their chairman, June Imeson, she saw the potential of a museum dedicated to James Herriot. She knew what good James Herriot had done.
Yes, she'd done tremendous things.
She thought they want this, and Hambledon District Council bought it from Alan and Janet Sinclair.
Right.
And it was then and eventually opened in 1999.
That's right, yeah.
So that was very, very good. We were so pleased that it was turned into a memorial, really,
Yeah.
which is it's very important to me that that's what happened.
'Cause it preserved your father's legacy in a way that was
It did.
helping people to understand it more.
Yeah, my father's legacy, certainly.
Yeah.
And one of his legacies, one of the greatest legacies my father left was, to start with, the history of everything, of how he wrote, and gave us a great memory of how veterinary practice was. His other legacy is the number of people that wrote to him and still write to my sister and I to say reading my dad's books did them good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It helped them through hard times because his books are full of goodwill towards others.
Yes.
Without being soppy and sentimental.
Sure. That fundamental thing you talked about last time we talked about, the doing the right thing in sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how involved were you in the preparations for the World of James Herriot? Were you?
Well, my mother was more involved than anybody because she remembered the place far better than. Well, Rosie was only 4 when we left, and I was 10.
Yes.
But that's just they consulted us to see what the rooms looked like, and was there a television there, and when did that come?
Yes.
Which it hardly was. Was there a radiogram? Was your dad musical? Did he have this? And some of the old furniture that's there is original stuff.
Yes.
That came.
Yes.
And so yes, but my mother she remembered better than any of us exactly how it was.
So
and it's done very well. She was consulted, and it's done extremely well. I remember some of the old rooms very nostalgic for me. The first 2 rooms you come into.
Yes.
You know, the dining room, and then there's the living room, which then became a waiting room after we'd left. We left the place in 1953. Then it became a waiting room.
That's when you moved to.
We moved to Tockliffe Road.
Rowarden. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah.
It's a place in Scotland that my father liked very much.
That's where the name comes from. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. After the museum opened, then there was a lot of visitors. You'd already been seeing these visitors since the 70s, so now it became official.
Yes.
I presume I'm asking a question in a way that about your involvement after that. Did you go there very often, or did you have much to do?
How do you mean?
Did you visit, and did you go and see people who were visiting in the first few years of it being open? Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Because you do it a lot now.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Yeah.
We're only too pleased to help.
Yes.
With these things, we did it a little bit, but they didn't ask us very much. They missed a trick. There's no doubt about that. I mean, once Ian Ashton took it over.
So this was.
It's before the pre-Ian Ashton days.
I mean, it was very busy to begin with, I think, wasn't it?
It was very busy, but it was losing money.
But then it started to, But of course, the TV series on BBC finished. Before it opened as a museum.
Oh yes. But it was going to close because it was losing 40,000, 50,000 a year.
This was in about 2011, wasn't it?
Yes. It was starting to lose money, but it was still a very nice museum to go to. It was the way it was set up, but it needed somebody like Ian as a businessman just to see what was wrong.
Yeah.
And he just turned it round.
And you were asked to help by Ian. He got you involved with Rosie.
Yes. Well, we help when visitors come.
Yeah.
They always seem to want to know the real story.
Yeah.
Behind James Herriot. You know.
Yes.
Was it fiction? You know. No, it wasn't fiction. You know, this sort of thing. What was his relationship with Siegfried? We like to know that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
One of the favourite characters is Tricky Woman, Mrs. Pumphrey. They want to know, was all this true? Did this happen?
Well, you've explained a little bit about that previously, and they were based on real characters, real people.
They were.
Just modified slightly. Yeah.
There was a funny little lady called Mrs. Bush. I remember when my dad was always trying to put people off by changing their sex.
Yeah.
And she made it, a man called Mr. Worley had some pigs.
Right.
And Mrs. Bush read these books. She always read these books. And she saw my dad in the marketplace. He appears in the second book. It was actually Mrs. Bush.
Right.
But And then she said, "Oh, Mr. Wight, I did enjoy that second book of yours. Oh, I did enjoy that book."
She knew
She said, "You know, that Mr. Worley and them pigs."
Yes.
And then she said to my dad, "Do you know, Mr. Wight, it could have been me."
It really was.
He really was. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you about Mrs. Bush, about the old characters that there were. This funny old lady, typical old Yorkshire woman. When she called me out one night to farrow a pig, a vicious pig, and Mrs. Bush, this funny little woman, had a broom in the pig's mouth, while I was pulling piglets out the other end. See, anyway, at the end of it, I was completely exhausted. I was covered in filth, stripped to the waist. It was cold. I was tired, hungry, and she had a pub, you see, a pub which never shut, even in those days when they were supposed to shut. Mrs. Bush's pub just stayed open.
Right.
And she said, "Jimmy, go and clean yourself up, and would you like to come for a drink in the pub?" "Oh, thank you, Mrs. Bush. Got nice 12-baht, nice piglets." "Thank you, Mrs. Bush." And then I went into the pub. There was a few people still in there. Yeah. And she drew me this pint of John Smith's. I can see it now. I was parched. I was just drawing it to my lips. She said, "That'll be 1 and 6, please, Jimmy." I thought, we're in Yorkshire here, all right. Oh, God, Mrs. Bush. You see, there were characters like that all over the place for James Herriot.
Yes. Yeah.
He had, as I said before, he had rich pickings.
I asked you earlier about the vet with the badger.
Yes.
Could you tell us a bit about that?
Brian Nettleton.
You didn't work with him, but it was...
No, I was at school when Brian Nettleton came out, late 1950s. And he was a bohemian sort of character who had pet badgers. And he kept them in the surgery. He kept the badgers in the premises where he lived in the flat upstairs.
Yes.
At 23 Kirkgate at the old, which is now the Herriot
Centre. Yeah.
Yeah. And he kept these badgers, and he used to boil huge amounts of tripe down in the bottom of the building, and the whole place stank of boiling tripe. Can you imagine it? With Donald Sinclair saying, "Brian, I'm sick of this stink of this tripe," and Brian to take it elsewhere. But honestly, and of course these badgers used to make nests in the back of our cars. You know, the seats disappeared. There were two seaters, these cars, by the time the badgers had finished with it.
Right.
So, but he was well liked by the farmers. He was a big, interesting, humorous, strong man. Yeah. He was a terrific surgeon and a really good vet. And one of life's great characters. He used to go in all the pubs and play a little squeeze box, you know. And he was with us for about 2 years.
He's not been included much if at all, in the current series, has he?
No,
You think
I don't know if he might appear. He appeared in the original series as Callum.
Yes.
Callum Buchanan.
Callum, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So another interesting man.
Perhaps that might come up in the 7th and 8th series.
Well, he could do.
Never know.
Oh yes, it could.
Yeah. So fast forwarding to the World of James Herriot opening, then the whole tourism side of things was becoming more official and obviously very recognised. I mean, we mentioned last time about the award from the British Tourist Authority in the 80s. We're now in the 90s and early 2000s, and the museum's open. It's bringing more people. Then it was declining for a while, and then Ian came along, and it became a new arrangement. What have you seen happening since then that you see? You're probably observing it as well as being involved a little bit, but what do you think about it?
Well, you know more about this than me here, John. All the fantastic things you do for the publicity.
Oh, I wasn't fishing for a compliment there.
I was
trying to just get your take on it, really.
Well, my take on it, I've done very little towards this at all. Are
you pleased?
We're full of admiration. Everything you do. You've got Neil's wonderful work with the technology side of it.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it's and also you've chosen the staff so well. They're really nice people at the staff. They're welcoming to all the visitors. This is very important.
Yeah.
You know, and all the publicity you do for you could answer this question better than me. All the bus tours that come in. Well, that's terrific. These tourists, these bus tours that Rosie and I sometimes give talks to, which we're delighted to do. We set up question and answer sessions, which are a piece of cake for Rosie and me, of course, question and answers.
Does it surprise you that there's still this great interest in your father and everything about his legacy.
That's always bemused me a bit, to be
Yeah.
quite honest, John. And I think, gosh, I know I'm a huge admirer of his writing and everything, but just the way it's still held the public's imagination, and it seems that more the younger generation are coming into this a bit now too.
Well,
There was a time when the younger generation were saying, "Who's James Herriot? Never heard of him,"
Yes.
But we're less and less of that now.
Well, certainly the TV series has helped to bring a new audience to the world of James.
Well, I always keep saying, of course, the TV series. We talk a lot about the TV series, but they're not as no TV series can be as good as the books.
No.
In my opinion. But the great success of James Herriot was the way that he wrote things, and that's what brings the humour in. Yeah. And it's very difficult to transpose that type of humour onto the screen, because it's the way that it's written that is so funny.
Yes, and how to depict that is very difficult for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about Yorkshire, and that Yorkshire's part of the story. Really, he's given Yorkshire a boost for so long now as a destination.
Yes.
You also mentioned this book, James Herriot.
Oh gosh, yes.
I think you said this was actually a better selling book than
It sold huge quantity. Now, I have interest in that book because my father, being the modest man that he was, asked me advice. He said, "My agents want me to write a book describing all the little things that I've written in my books, the real places."
I see. Yeah.
And I said, "Forget it, Dad." Said, "Who wants to read all about little pokey little places in corners of Yorkshire? Who wants to read that?" Well, and he went back to them and said, "No, I don't think I'll do it." But they talked him into it.
Oh, right. Okay.
And it ended up as being the best all the hard books.
Yeah, it was out hardback originally. Yeah.
Sold more than any other. At one time, it was selling more than any other.
Yes.
So I'll give you some advice, John. If you go write a book, don't ask me for advice, will you? Take the opposite and you'll be laughing.
Well, it's a very, very good book about Yorkshire, isn't it? And
We used to see...
it covers the whole of Herriot country.
Yeah, there it is.
That he,
we used, everywhere we went, God, Rosie and I, we used to go walking up in the dales, or people with that book,
Yes.
following that book under their arm.
Yes.
It is good. It does give some of the insight into the real James Herriot too.
Yes, it's got locations that are part of the filming and TV series, but it's actually about the places in real life, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And,
it is.
Lovely picture of your father on top of Sutton.
Top of Sutton Bank. Yeah, his favourite place.
Yeah. Which he named
Sutton
the
Bank.
finest view in
The finest view in England.
England. Yeah. Which is a great tribute again.
Oh yes.
There's a trail.
Oh yes.
Up there that's actually got a sign saying that.
There's a sign saying it.
To the finest view in England. Yeah.
He always found time with his dogs, even though he worked very hard. He used to say to me, "If I can't walk my dogs for 15 minutes along the top of Sutton Bank in the course of the morning, I'll just give up." They always got the quarter of an hour, or if it was sometimes a quiet day, they'd get more.
Yeah.
But even on a busy day, they'd get that 15 minutes.
He loved it up there. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He liked. Funny enough, he liked wild places, mountainous places, fresh air places. A lot of people, they see wide open moorland, they find it forbidding. He didn't.
He liked it.
He liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like that.
Tell me about family stuff when you were young. I mean, there wasn't much time to go away a lot, I guess.
We had our first holiday in 1951, I think it was.
Yeah.
And my dad came to Thirsk in 1940, and astonishingly, he did the first 11 years of his professional life with every night on call.
Really? Every night?
Now, that defeats me. I cannot understand how anybody could have done that. He was short of money, of course. He started with nothing. And we had our first holiday, but he couldn't afford to go away on holidays.
Take time off and stop earning, yeah.
The first paying holiday we had was at Robin Hood's Bay.
Was it?
We went there. And then the next year we went to the Lake District. Very modest hotels, this sort of thing. But still great holidays.
Yeah.
As kids, we thought it was great. We had no idea. He never gave us any impression that he was short of money.
No, he gave you what you wanted.
Never. Because he was very generous. And he, for instance, he used to pay a little woman to help my mother slave in the house, in the old Skeldale house, you know.
Yes, yeah.
He paid, he bought my mother a little second-hand car. So, and the end result was, during 1966, for his silver wedding, he didn't have enough money to take my mother out for a meal.
Right. Gosh.
He said,
yeah.
What he used to say to me was, 25 years of slavery, and what I've got in the bank is 20 quid.
Mm.
Now,
tough times.
Because, the thing was, he earned well, really, but he spent a lot of money on other people.
Yes, so he's generous.
And if you don't inherit anything, if you start from scratch, it takes a lot of building up a head of capital. But importantly, he didn't owe anybody anything, you know, except his mortgage, of course. He had a big mortgage.
Sure. But his generosity shone through by the sounds of it.
Oh, absolutely generous. Yeah. Totally generous.
Yeah.
And in fact, I remember when I was 21, we went on holiday with a family abroad, and the family had much more money than we did. And they stayed in the best hotels. We went around together, good friends. Mm-hmm. But we went to little self-catering places.
Okay.
Because we couldn't afford. My dad couldn't afford couldn't afford these more fanciest, luxurious places. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting to look back on.
Yes.
And in fact, I consider my life, I've been very fortunate, really, compared to him. I don't think how he managed to do that, getting up in the morning and going off to these tuberculin testing in sub-zero temperatures up there. I couldn't do it. Yeah. Or you never know, I might have had to do it, but...
well, needs must at the time, I guess, but...
well, it certainly was a case of needs must with him. Yeah. People don't realise that he started with absolutely nothing. Mm. Mm. That's why I've got a lot of admiration for what he did. My goodness me. The books coming out and making money for it, when I say it didn't revolutionise his life, because he still followed his same pastimes. Yes. Yeah. But it was a cushion behind it.
There wasn't the worry of the...
and I used to say to him, what pleasure to get out of your books, Dad? And he said, do you know, a great pleasure in giving my money away to other people sometimes, if they're in need. He didn't give a lot away like that. But, and then he said, I could take people out for meals without having to worry about things, you know. Yeah. And it's a great cushion that I'll be all right, you know.
Yes, with security.
He said, I don't want to change my way of life. Why should I?
No.
So, but he was a man very generous who spent a lot on others. This is why he had nothing by the time his wedding anniversary. I always found that interesting, to flogged away there and he's got 20 quid left.
So going back to the world of James Herriot, Jim, what must it be? What do you feel when you go back in there? It's the house you were living in as a child, and it's now somewhere that millions of people visit.
Well, it's almost unique for us, for my sister and I, to go back and see the places that we used to run about in as kids. Not many people can say that. And the great thing about it is, when we run through these places, it hasn't radically changed either. No. From when we were there. And the sitting room, the dining room, and the old dispensary are just as they were. Yeah. They look just as they were.
How do you feel about that? Is it?
Oh, I think it's terrific. I think it fills me with nostalgia, shall we say, that deep nostalgia. And also, I know that my dad would have approved so much, because it would bring a few more bob into people's pockets as well, which of course he was always interested in.
He's done a lot for a lot of people, hasn't he? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And the industry of Herriot is continuing.
Yeah. It is amazing. It's almost unique to be able to go back to the place, to see it's still there. Mm-hmm. We're so pleased the council took it on.
So back in 2016, a statue was created of your father. And at the time, you and Rosie weren't so sure.
We thought it was, Dad wouldn't have wanted a statue and all this sort of stuff. But we're completely wrong. I mean, it's one of the best things Ian's done, I think. Yeah. Because it's a focal point, it's a centre point there. Yes. For the statue, for the centre is the statue of my dad with his Wellington standing exactly as he was. That is an eerie experience for my sister and I. Because when we look at him, especially sideways on, you expect him to start speaking.
Yes.
He really is. He's really, really, it's lifelike. It's fantastic.
It's a very good job.
And it's in the right place.
It's in the garden.
In the garden.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned that, well, you put this in Thirsk Marketplace. Not a chance. There'll be fish and chips thrown at it and God knows what.
It's in the right place.
It's in the right spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the right place. Yeah, and another of Ian's good decisions.
Yeah, I think it's and it is a focal point, as you say. People love to have their photographs taken with Alf at the statue. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Gives a whole
Yes.
and it means a lot. It means a lot to a lot of people, doesn't it?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about the real James Herriot in these discussions, and you've written this authorised biography. It's a really great read. I've got lots of marker points in here of things I've been picking up on it. There's something in here you want to tell me about.
Well, it's just that book. For me, I mean, a lot of things I haven't done for people like my father did, but one thing that's the best thing I've done for my father is that.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done as much for the public as my father has, nowhere near. But there's one thing I've done for him was write that book, because prior to my writing this book, there was lots of controversy about James Herriot. You know, were his books fact or were they fiction? Mm-hmm. Which we always found a little bit hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
Various contradictory things. Also, was he the nice man that he was, and did he have a nervous breakdown, which he did for about 2 years of his long life?
Yeah.
And headlines in the magazines, James Herriot's Life of Hell, and all this sort of stuff came out.
Quite.
You know. Anyway, I remember just before he died, I said, somebody will write a biography of you, Dad. And he said, well, anybody does it, you should do it. I said, I can't write. I've never written anything in my life. My dad said, I don't care. And what he did say, which I never forgot, was, you'll tell the truth.
Yes.
I never forgot that.
Mm.
So in there is the truth.
Yeah.
But there's interesting example in there of his relationship with Donald Sinclair's Siegfried.
Yeah.
One biography made out that James Herriot was a wimp.
Mm-hmm.
Because Siegfried didn't work anything like as hard as James Herriot. Right, so Siegfried comes out as a tyrant in this other book. Now, when you read it, look at it again, my dad wasn't a wimp at all. He said, hey, I'm working harder than you.
Yeah.
And we're earning the same amount of money. So everything I do, I want into my pocket. Everything you do goes into yours. Okay. And Donald Sinclair agreed to it. So he wasn't a tyrant at all. There's little things like this.
You're correcting any...
I'm correcting, put it right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've done my father's image a lot better now.
Well, the charitable
my father, no, sorry, that's a wrong expression. My father always had a great image. Mm-hmm. But this business about him having a life of hell is absolute rubbish.
Yeah, headlines that were
Yeah, so I've put the story straight, that's all.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do.
Did you find those headlines hurtful then?
Very much so, yes, yes. And I made the mistake of talking to the press shortly after he died. You mention a nervous breakdown, just mention it.
Yeah.
And James Herriot's had a terrible life.
It's in
That's not true.
Inappropriate context. Yeah.
Well, no, he had a very rewarding life, a very fulsome life. But, yeah. So it's just to put the thing straight. And that's the only decent thing I've done, really.
It's a very good read. Yeah. And certainly gives anyone who reads it a really great insight into...
Well, all I can say about it, there's only one thing I can say about it, it's true.
Yes, yeah.
That's the main thing for me, and that's what he would appreciate. And he was also a big reader of biographies. He loved history. And he used to read things about Napoleon or about various other famous people, Lord Nelson, this sort of thing. And he'd say to me, I wonder which is the truth. If they told different stories.
Yes, yeah.
What the different bent was. Who's telling the truth? And so that's very important to me. That's what he told me, and that's what I've done. That's all.
You've kept your word to your father,
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
That's great. That's really good.
Yeah.
Jim, thank you again for today's session. It's been really good to talk through things with you again, and I hope we can do this again soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right on. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Pleasure.